2024 has not been a kind year for the gaming industry, with approximately 14,600 gaming industry workers being laid off because of a combination of corporate greed and post-pandemic industry adjustments, and with seemingly every gaming giant facing their own dilemma, such as Xbox facing their identity crisis, PlayStation feeling the effect of scope creep, and Nintendo heading into incognito mode. It begs the question, how did we get here? In this video, we'll mainly be focusing on Nintendo, but to better understand, we'll have to go all the way back to 2017, when Nintendo was clawing themselves away from the Wii U, and the financial disaster that era was for Nintendo. It truly was do or die for Nintendo, and a lot was on the line with the Switch. But fortunately for them, they had an amazing product and they knew it. And despite some naysayers at the beginning of the Switch life saying that the Switch could never compete to the PS4 or the Xbox One simply because it was less powerful, the Switch quickly proved itself to the naysayers, proving the system was a lot more capable than people first gave it credit for, cementing itself as a force to be reckoned with. And after the initial launch, the Switch was off to the races, quickly surpassing the Wii U's lifetime sales in less than a year. And by the end of 2019, Nintendo had sold a grand total of over 34 million units. Things weren't just looking good for Nintendo, they were looking up, and they were finally able to take a sigh of relief. And they say that opportunity is where luck meets preparation, and that could not be made more evident with 2020 for Nintendo. Because when Nintendo was gearing up to release their biggest Animal Crossing game ever, the pandemic struck, leaving millions of people just home, sitting around and doing nothing. But once the novelty of baking bread wore off, people then turned themselves to video games for entertainment. But specifically Animal Crossing, because it could provide the one thing people needed the most, which was escapism. Animal Crossing provided people a unique way to socialize. Because even though you couldn't go see your friends and family in person, you could always go see them on their island. And each time you would go visit, something would have changed. They would have planted more flowers, a new villager would have moved in. There always seemed to be something interesting happening on someone's island that you could go visit. So even though a lot of people didn't have many things going on in their real life, in the world beyond the screen, plenty of things were happening. And if you pair that with the disastrous launch of the PS5 and Xbox Series X, where both Microsoft and Sony could not provide enough systems for the demand to be met, and scalpers scalping every unit that was on the store shelves as well, Nintendo truly had no competition for a while. Because for the average consumer just looking for a gaming console to play at home, they could either buy the last generation of Xbox because they could not find the new ones in store, or they could buy the last generation of PlayStation because they couldn't find the PS5 in store either, or they could buy the Nintendo Switch, which wasn't even just the newest Nintendo console, it was also cheaper than the competition, and they also had the option to take the console with them on the go. The value proposition was just much higher. And all of these factors combined led to the Nintendo Switch becoming an unstoppable force in the gaming industry throughout the pandemic. The Switch was even so successful that other companies tried to steal their thunder as well, but none had the same allure on the general consumers like the Switch. For the first time in a long time, it felt good to be a Nintendo fan. After the stellar year 2023 was for Nintendo games, giving us game after game like Tears of the Kingdom, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and Metroid Prime Remastered, we were hit by the biggest rumor of all. 2024 was going to be even better, because the successor to the Switch was finally on the way. But what happened next wasn't what we imagined, actually quite the opposite. In comes 2024 and Nintendo fans are thrilled. The beginning of the year is always an exciting time because a lot of people like to speculate upon what they predict will come in the year. Not only that, but in a typical year for Nintendo, we can expect 3 Nintendo Directs. However, Nintendo did not opt into having a general Nintendo Direct and instead having a partner Direct on February 21st. But despite not having the general Nintendo Direct, there was a portion of the Nintendo community that was jumping for joy. Because for them, this meant Nintendo was holding all of the good stuff for later. As the year crept on, a good portion of the game lineup that Nintendo had for us was ports, remasters, and remakes, which also helped fuel the idea that they were holding something bigger for later. But for the majority of the year, Nintendo remained silent. But most of the news that we received in the first half of 2024 was actually just leaks and rumors. Those leaks and rumors being from 2 major actors in the scene, Pyoro and Midori. But before their eventual downfall, every time that they decided to post on Twitter, whatever they said typically came to be shortly after. As time started to flow by, Nintendo fans started to get confused. Because where is Nintendo? And why are they so quiet? They haven't really announced anything big so far, and a lot of people were under the impression that the next console was going to be out for the holiday season of 2024. But lo and behold, on May 7th, Nintendo finally announces what everybody knew was coming. Sort of. Because Nintendo didn't technically announce the successor to the Switch, they announced that they were going to announce at a later date what the Nintendo Switch successor was going to be. And although some people were kind of disappointed that we didn't get to see the console, at least now we knew that 1, it was coming, and 2, we knew a time frame. But all the pieces were falling into place now. How could we have been so blind? Clearly the answer was right there. Nintendo was going to mimic the reveal and the launch of the Switch 1 with the successor, meaning that the successor was going to be shown off full-blown in around September to October, with the console itself being released somewhere around March of 2025. Then 2024 arrives near the midway point, and we hit June 18th where we finally get our first general Nintendo Direct of the year. Overall, this Nintendo Direct was very well received. Some of the highlights include Mario Party Jamboree, Mario and Luigi Brothership, The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, Metroid Prime 4, and Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. Things were really starting to look up for the Nintendo community, because another rumor hit the scene, and that rumor was that the presentation that was slated for September was actually bumped up to August. This meant that September and October were actually wide open for Nintendo to finally announce the successor to the Nintendo Switch. Then lo and behold, on August 27th, we actually had a double direct. A direct that was comprised by both a Indie World and a Partner Mini Showcase. This once again fed into the narrative that Nintendo just had to get a few more announcements out of the way to clear up the calendar so that they could actually make the big announcement for the new console. However, that announcement never came to be. Instead, we got a tweet from Nintendo stating that the next console would indeed be backwards compatible, which was indeed great to hear, just not what we were expecting to hear. Then once again for the rest of the year, crickets on Nintendo's end. Once again, the most we'd ever hear from Nintendo was actually not anything official, just leaks and rumors. But it wasn't all lost, and here's why. But first, I have a short message. If this is your first time here, hey, my name's Acadrien and I post weekly Nintendo videos. So if that's something you think you'd enjoy, I would greatly appreciate it if you would simply consider to like and subscribe, and without further ado, let's go right back into the video. Although 2024 may not have been the best year for Nintendo, it certainly was not the worst. Considering how deep we are in the Switch's life, the game output was still very good. And it was very evident that 2024 was supposed to be a setup year for Nintendo. Not just setting up for the new console coming out next year, but also setting up and strengthening the brand of Nintendo as a whole, as they keep expanding beyond the gaming industry into the greater entertainment industry as a whole. Instead, they announced plenty of experiences for us to live. Experiences such as the Nintendo Museum that recently opened in Japan, or the new Mario movie that'll be releasing in 2026, as well as an expansion to the Mario World and Universal. These are already 3 examples in one singular year on how people like us, the Nintendo fans, can interact with the brand without just playing the video game. They also announced a new product in the form of the Alarmo, which was yet another push in another industry, this time it being lifestyle. And with how stupidly successful the Alarmo is in Japan, I really wouldn't be shocked if they kept going with new lifestyle products. My personal bet would be a Nintendo cookbook, featuring recipes from multiple games. For example, one recipe could be the delicious cake that Peach bakes for Mario every time before she gets kidnapped. But yeah, that's just me simply thinking out loud. But now's the part where I turn the video back to you. What was your Nintendo highlight of 2024? Let me know down in the comments below. And until next time, Warao.